welcome. You've come to rest, to drift, to let the world quiet down for a little while. Tonight, we'll step back in time far, across the centuries, to a place so rich in life, rhythm, and ritual that it pulses, even now, through the layers of earth and memory. This is not the Europe of castles and plague, nor the dusty tracks of Rome or Greece. No, tonight, we find ourselves on the other side of the world, in a city of causeways and canals, of painted faces and obsidian blades. We're going to Tenochtitlan, the great capital of the Aztecs. You may know the name. It lingers beneath the modern sprawl of Mexico City. But what lies buried beneath concrete and cars is a world that once stood dazzling, rigid, fragrant, loud, and deeply alive. And tonight, you'll walk its streets. You'll carry bitter cacao in a woven pouch. You'll bargain in a market that smells of chili smoke and crushed flowers. You'll glimpse an emperor who was once a god. You'll learn of sacrifice softly, carefully, and you'll sit in the feather-lined shadows of nobility. So now, let your breath slow. Let the present slip away. Close your eyes, if you like, and imagine yourself in the heart of a floating city. Segment 1. A day in the marketplace. Life as a lowly cacao seller in Tenochtitlan. It is just before dawn, and the light is soft, the kind that spreads slowly, reluctant to wake the world too quickly. You are already awake. You are a seller of cacao, not a wealthy merchant those wear fine cottons and jade pendants, but a humble trader. Your home is modest, a simple reed-walled structure near the canals that snake outward from the city's heart like veins. You sleep on a woven mat. Your possessions are few, but your cacao, it is precious. It has traveled far, from the humid lowlands to the south. The beans are dry and dark, with a faint, earthy sweetness to their scent. They are not for drinking at least not for you. For nobles, priests, warriors perhaps, for you they are currency and livelihood. You wrap them in a woven cloth, secure them with careful knots, and set off toward the great marketplace of Tlatelolco. The journey is slow and rhythmic. Your bare feet pad along stone walkways. Flat-bottomed canoes glide silently through the canals beside you, loaded with flowers, fruit, and bundles of wood. A distant bell metal, hollow chimes from a temple tower, calling priests to early rites. As you near the market, the hum grows louder. Now imagine it, a space the size of dozens of football fields, open to the sky. Columns of smoke rise from food stalls. Thousands of voices swirl in the air, vendors calling out prices, buyers arguing, priests offering blessings over baskets of maize. You find your assigned place. Everything in Tenochtitlan is ordered, regulated. You do not simply pick a spot. There are officials, comicac scribes, who track the comings and goings. There are rules, what may be sold, where, and by whom, and taxes, always taxes. You lay out your beans on a cloth and sit cross-legged. Around you, others arrange their goods. Woven sandals, obsidian knives, roasted insects in clay bowls, embroidered tunics, dried chilies in crimson heaps. A nobleman's steward passes by. He eyes your beans with indifference and walks on. But an old woman stops, squints, and asks the price. You tell her. She scoffs and moves away. You are too young to command respect, too poor to command loyalty. By midday, the sun is hot, the air thick with the smell of roasted maize and human bodies. You barter for a tamale, careful not to spend too many beans each. One is a day's survival. You eat quickly, quietly, As a patrol of market inspectors moves past, their faces are painted, their sandals fine. They speak to no one, but everyone watches them. Sometimes there are punishments. A seller caught cheating might be stripped and humiliated. A thief. Still, this is life. This is the rhythm of your days. To sell enough to eat. To sell enough to offer a small tax at the temple. To avoid trouble. To endure the shouting, the heat, the uncertainty. And as the sun begins to lower, the crowd thins. Buyers carry their treasures home. Vendors pack their unsold goods. You count your cacao beans, fewer than you hoped. Enough for some maize and salt, not enough for rest. You walk back through the evening haze. The canal water is golden with the fading sun. Somewhere in the distance, a drum begins to beat a slow, hollow sound. A priest sings high and clear, his voice rising like smoke. You do not look toward the great temple. You do not ask what the drum means. You have survived another day, and tomorrow you will return. Let us rest here for a moment. Let the sounds of the market fall away. Let the sun slip beneath the horizon of memory. Because beyond the bustle of trade and the sting of humiliation, the world of the Aztecs holds figures of power and myth. And now we turn toward one such figure. A man who rose beyond mortal life, whose name meant angry lord, who saw gods in dreams and doom in strangers. Let us now walk into the palace shadows and meet Moctezuma. Imagine now the same city but from far above. The marketplace becomes a speck. The temples, flat-roofed and towering, form a spine down the city's sacred center. Canals glimmer like threads of obsidian, and there, nestled in a walled compound of delicate gardens and strict geometry, walks a man draped in turquoise and feathered silk. Moctezuma II. His name means he who frowns like a lord, or more loosely, angry lord. But in the world of the Aztecs, names held layers. They were prophecies, sometimes warnings. When Moctezuma was born around the year 1466, the empire was rising, like a great serpent winding its way across the valleys of central Mexico. It consumed city after city, not in flames, but through tribute, diplomacy, war, and fear. Moctezuma's early life was shaped by this empire. As a young noble, he was trained in religion, warfare, law, astronomy, and history. He was no idle prince. His education was strict, even punishing. He fasted. He learned to speak without arrogance. He memorized genealogies of gods and men. He slept on mats no softer than stone. These were not lessons in comfort. They were lessons in destiny. He first served as a priest, not just a worshiper, but a ritual expert one who could read the stars, offer the right words to the right gods, maintain the fragile balance between the heavens and the earth. Later, he took up the mantle of general. By the time he ascended the throne in 1502, he had the bearing of a man chosen by fate. The empire was vast. Gold flowed in from the south, turquoise from the north, cacao from the tropical coasts. And he, seated in his gilded court, was not merely an emperor, he was divine. Let yourself walk for a moment through his palace, not imagined, but described by early Spanish chroniclers. There are rooms of whitewashed stone, gardens where monkeys and deer wander, a private aviary filled with birds whose feathers shimmer like fire. Servants move silently, barefoot, carrying platters of steaming food, tamales, wrapped in banana leaf, chocolate thickened with honey and chili, fruits carved into spirals, and Moctezuma. He is rarely seen directly. Those who approach him do not look him in the eye. He listens behind a screen, speaks through intermediaries. Even his sandals must not touch the earth more than once. New ones are worn each day, discarded after only a few steps. But power, however divine, cannot prevent uncertainty. For during his reign, strange omens began to appear. A comet split the sky in eerie silence. A temple burned with no apparent cause. A mirror in the chest of a bird, it is said, showed warriors riding animals never seen before. Serpents danced in the rivers. Women wept in the night for lost children, though none had gone missing, and Moctezuma worried. He turned to his priests, he asked his diviners, he sent emissaries far and wide, looking for answers. For in his mind and the minds of many, these were not just curiosities, they were messages. The gods were stirring, perhaps returning, and then they arrived. They rode beasts never seen before horses. They smelled of salt and smoke, of sickness and something unknowable. Moctezuma did not meet them with armies. Instead, he sent gifts, gold discs the size of shields, feather cloaks, obsidian blades, jade earrings, perhaps to impress them, perhaps to ward them off, or perhaps, just perhaps, or at least touched by gods. When at last he welcomed them into his city, yes, into Tenochtitlan itself, he did not strike. He housed them, fed them, showed them his temples, his treasures, his city of water and light, and then, not long after, he became their prisoner. It is said he was taken quietly under diplomatic pretense. The Spaniards feared rebellion, so they seized the emperor and held him in his own palace, surrounded by his own guards. Moctezuma remained calm. He performed rituals, received visitors, gave speeches, but each word, each step, was under watch. His people grew restless, angry, and when, at last, revolt broke out, when stones flew and spears were raised, Moctezuma was brought to speak to the crowds, to calm them, but they did not listen. Some say they threw stones. Others say he was already wounded, perhaps by his captors. The stories blur. But what is clear is this: he died not on a battlefield, not in his temple, but in the shadow of confusion and silence. The empire would fall not long after. So let us leave him now, beneath the volcanic sky, as night gathers around the white stones of his vanished city, and from his palace let us walk slowly toward the temple. The sun is high, the steps are steep, and something waits at the top, something that puzzled and horrified the conquerors, and still lingers in fragments of obsidian and carved stone. Let us now explore the sacred and the terrible. The sun presses down like a slow weight on stone. You find yourself once again in Tenochtitlan, but now you are climbing. The temple rises before you, its twin staircases splitting toward the heavens, painted red and blue to honor the two gods who dwell at its summit. On one side, Huitzilopochtli, the god of sun and war, hummingbird on the left. On the other, Tlaloc, the god of rain, thunder, and growing things, blood and water, life and death. This is the Templo Mayor, the heart of the empire. It is not silent. You hear drums deep, measured, echoing from the temple's steps. You hear flutes, high and wavering, shell trumpets, and a chant, low and rhythmic, rising like smoke. A line of priests ascends ahead of you, their cloaks black, their feet bare and dusted with red ochre. At the top waits the altar, not a dark place, but one that gleams in the sun. Covered in white plaster, it reflects the sky. And beside it always rests the blade, not a blade of steel, but obsidian, sharp as glass, black as night, cooled in the fires of volcanoes, and sharpened to an edge that could slice through hair with a whisper. The tekpadal, the sacrificial knife, is short and curved slightly inward, with a wide handle often carved with the face of a god or a snarling beast. The blade itself gleams, clean and cold, but its story is not. When Spanish conquistadors first arrived and saw the rites performed here, they recoiled. Some would later describe it as barbaric, monstrous, but to the Aztecs it was sacred duty, a bargain with the gods, a repayment for life itself. You see, the world, as they understood it, was not permanent. It had been born and destroyed again and again. The fifth sun, the age they lived in, was fragile. It required nourishment, and so they gave it blood, not indiscriminately. These were not acts of cruelty, but of cosmic necessity. A warrior captured in battle was not simply a prisoner. He was transformed, honored, by becoming a nexli huli, a debt payment. At the altar, the ritual followed precise steps. The priests wore masks, sometimes of jaguars, sometimes of skulls, sometimes of gods. They carried the captive up the steps. He might be drugged with hallucinogens. He might dance beforehand, dressed as the god he was to become. At the summit, he would be placed on a curved stone, chest skyward, and then the knife. We will not linger on the details. It is enough to say, the ritual was swift, a single cut, a moment of stillness, a heart raised skyward toward the sun, then smoke, then silence, and then the procession resumed. The sacrifice was not just destruction, it was transformation. The body might be buried or offered in other ways. The blood was smeared on statues, on crops, on sacred objects. It fed not just the gods, but the cycle of all things. And now, centuries later, archaeologists dig carefully through the soil beneath modern Mexico City, brushing away time with soft brushes and gloved hands. What they find confirms what was once called legend. They find stone altars, worn smooth, obsidian blades, still keen, still dark, rows of skulls, many more than once, believed arranged in walls, known as tzampantli, once described in conquistador accounts, and long dismissed as exaggeration. But they were real. Some skulls are male, others female, some young, some with dental decorations, mauled jade stones embedded in the teeth, signs of nobility. Some show evidence of ritual preparation, smoothing, carving, cleaning. They were not trophies, but symbols, offerings. Not all sacrifices were war captives. Some were volunteers, chosen to embody the gods themselves. One such ritual, the festival of Tenochtitlan, involved selecting a perfect youth to impersonate the god Tezcatlipoca for an entire year, honored, pampered, dressed in finery. At year's end, he would climb the temple and walk willingly to his death. To understand, this is not to condone it, but to glimpse the very different world of Aztec belief. A world in which death was not the end, but part of a larger rhythm, in which the knife was not an instrument of terror, but of devotion. And still, it terrified the Spanish. To the Catholic worldview, the Aztec rites were incomprehensible. Their first witnesses wrote of demons and devils, of cities ruled by fear. But to the Aztecs, it was the opposite. To fail to sacrifice would be to invite the world's end. The sun, they believed, had once refused to risen till the gods sacrificed themselves in fire. If they had given their lives to birth the sun, should not humans give in return to keep it alive? And so the blade remained sharp. Even now, in museums and dig sites, the sacred knives rest in glass cases. Some still show residue traces of use, but they no longer shine in sunlight, no longer rise skyward in ritual. Only the obsidian remains, silent and cold. Let us now descend slowly from the temple steps. The drums have faded, the air is still, the rituals are over. But not all in Tenochtitlan lived among blood and altars. There were others far from the market stalls and the sacrificial stones who lived lives of refined elegance, of luxury, ritual, and quiet pressure. Let us now drift into the shaded courtyards of the nobility.